Great. City Council will come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Walsh.
Present.
Present. Counselor Fenton. Absent. Counselor Perez.
Present.
Present. Counselor Whitfield.
Present.
Present. Counselor Govan.
Present.
Present. Counselor Allen.
Present.
Present. Counselor Brown.
Present.
Present. Counselor Hurst.
Present.
Present. Counselor Click Bruce.
Present.
Present. Counselor Edwards.
Present.
Present. Counselor Curran.
Present.
Present. Counselor Davila.
Present.
Present. Counselor Letterman.
Present. Madam Clerk, can you please recognize Councilor Fenton?
Counselor Fenton.
Present.
Present.
Will members and guests please rise and join us in a moment of silence? Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Before we begin, let the record reflect that Councilors Perez, Click Bruce, Walsh, Brown, Hurst, and Whitfield are participating in tonight's proceedings remotely. At this time, Madam Clerk, please call the first item.
The first item is an order authorizing contract term over 3 years for a municipal aggregation services agreement.
CAFO Plant.
Thank you, Mr. President, to the council. This is a request that we are seeking an up to 5-year contract for a consultant to help us with our municipal aggregation. As the council passed that, I believe, last December, and the mayor and the administration are going to move forward with trying to get a consultant to help us lock in better rates for our residents and businesses.
Thank you, Mr. CAFO. Are there any questions, comments, or deliberation on the order? Councilor Govan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank the administration for making a decision to do this. I especially want to thank Live Well Springfield, who did a lot of research and helped us to come to this point. Councilor Perez, myself, and Council President Letterman met with the team, and they presented a great plan a couple of years ago, I believe. And I think that this is a great first step in the city, and that our residents will hopefully be able to have a choice to have better rates for their electricity and their source of energy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Councilor Perez.
Yes, I just want to give thanks to Live Well. I work with them closely. Great team, great accomplishment. Day by day, as a director of housing, I see the need in the community, and I want to thank the administration for finally coming through with this contract. Thank you so much.
Are there any further questions, comments, or deliberations? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on authorizing the order.
On authorizing the order, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Brown. Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The order is approved. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Next item is an appropriation order for taking damages for St. James Avenue at Carew Street intersection.
Director Signoli. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. This item was was moved to committee at our last regular meeting, and it was referred to the Finance Committee. Meeting was held on Thursday, January 19th at 4. The counselors that were that were present were Counselor Tracy Whitfield, Counselor Justin Hurst, Counselor Melvin Edwards, and myself. We also had Reverend Watson from the Canaan Church across from Pottinger School, and a few other people. Mr. Signoli was present as well. The item was moved to committee because of some concerns about the compensation for the inconvenience of having some construction work done on on many properties there, but specifically this one was on the Canaan Baptist Church. So a discussion ensued where we talked about how these things go, how compensation is determined, etc. Remember, there's no loss of property at this church. There is only the inconvenience factor of construction during the process of the big project. At that time, Reverend Watson, there was a lot of question about was the compensation big enough, etc. Attorney Shuchuk was there to help us with that part of it. There was some question about how does compensation determined on a property like that. And it was pretty much said by a couple people that were present. The compensation is determined by the zoning, and churches, in this case, this church was zoned residential, so the residential rate applies. There were some questions on that because of the number of people that attend the church, etc., and there was some back and forth on that during the meeting. Eventually, I'll just give you my summary report, and I'm sure other people may want to comment on it. Eventually, Reverend Watson said that he was willing to, even though he had maybe some concerns about the compensation, that it wasn't a big enough problem for him to want to take it any further. So he was willing to speak on behalf of his church and accept the compensation that was there, and was willing to move forward on that basis. So I think we reached an agreement by the end of the meeting, but it did take us a little while to get there. So that's my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Director Signoli, did you also wish to be heard on this item?
Thank you, councilors. To refresh your memory, we are looking for 2 votes tonight, one for the appropriation and one for the actual taking. Excuse me. The cost of the takings in total is $271,900 for 13 partial takings, 46 temporary construction easements, and 8 permanent easements. This is for a project that's $9.3 million for St. James Avenue, St. James Boulevard, and Carew Street, a total of about 4,100 feet of roadway reconstruction. It is a Mass DOT project that will be, right now is scheduled for advertising in April, and construction start later this year. So for this evening, we need to get the approval for the appropriation and for the actual takings.
Thank you, Director Signoli. Before we go further, Focus has reminded me to remind all of you to please deliver your remarks from the seated position so that everybody at home can see and hear you. Is there any further questions, comments, or deliberation on the appropriation request? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll to approve the appropriation order. 2/3 majority vote is required.
On approving the order, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The appropriation order is approved. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Next item is an order taking of land and easements for St. James Avenue and Carew Street intersection.
Director Signoli.
Councilors, this is the second vote. After appropriating the funds, we are now appropriating the actual takings and easements.
Are there any questions, comments, or deliberation? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the order of taking.
On
Two-thirds
approving
vote
the
is
order?
required.
Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The taking is approved.
Thank you, councilors.
Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Next item is for a special permit for an accessory wall sign above the first floor at the properties known as East Side Martone Place.
Members, Director Dromey has informed me that there's a request to continue this with the hearing, having not yet opened the hearing as was previously done from the petitioner. Is there such a motion?
Motion to continue.
Second.
Councilor Edwards has made a motion to continue this item. Second has been made by Councilor Govan. Is there any discussion on the motion to continue? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the motion to continue this to our next hearings meeting.
On the motion to continue, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The permit is continued to the next hearings meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
The next item is for a special permit for motor vehicle sales at the property known as 971 East Columbus Avenue.
Is the petitioner present? Please step to the podium. This is a special permit hearing, will be run in accordance with the rules of the City Council. Proponents will receive 20 minutes to present their special permit and state their reasons for support. Opponents will have the same right, and both parties will receive 5 minutes for rebuttal. At this time, the proponent's time is beginning, and please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Yahira Lopez, and I'm here from Peña Lopez Auto Repair, all plant inspection, tires and more. 971, 970, 961 is Columbus Avenue.
The floor is yours.
Excuse me? Okay, the
You may
purpose
continue.
for us is we deposit to apply for a special permit to sell cars. The license is going to be for 5 cars. It's not because we want to pretend to put a sales, a dealer. It's going to be because we have an auto repair. And sometimes many clients don't want to invest more money in those cars, and they say, I don't want to keep it. So you can keep it, and they sell. They bring it to us with the title, and then we can sell. So we want to be agree and accord with the city to not make any violation with, because we can put any signs in any cars if we don't have the permit. So that's why we are trying to get the approve for the city to that business. And in a little while, we know that we have many recommendations that we receive it, and we are working on it.
Thank you very much. Does that conclude your remarks?
Excuse me?
Is that all that you have to say this evening?
No, I mean, I want to say that we are, this is the first time we are here, and then I think that we're going to be, we're going to do the best as we can, because we don't have any situation around. So we are trying to put the whole corner, because we have a whole corner. The Lombard, the East Columbus Avenue, we don't make any traffic. We make the whole corner clean, and then we put the trash in the part that we have to do it. So I think we are doing good, and we're going to do it better if we get the support for the city.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'd ask, if that concludes your remarks, that you step aside in case there are any other individuals here to speak in favor of the permit.
Okay.
So you may step aside at this time.
Here?
Yeah, you're good. And is there anybody else here to speak in favor of the special permit? Representative Gonzalez, welcome.
Good evening, and to my honor, It's an honor to be here in front of my honorable colleagues in municipal government. Thank you for allowing me to speak, President Letterman. I am here on behalf of Peña, and this is a perfect story of the immigrant community coming alive and well in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's a great story for the micro business community, which you all have heard me champion for over 15 years. It's a story about a wife and a husband and 4 children that have 5, I'm sorry, 5, and a dog and a cat. That's right. And they come to this country with little, but with the drive and the education that they have from their country. And that country happens to be Dominican Republic. And with the knowledge of auto mechanics and the specialty in electrical auto mechanics, and as we all know, and our new cars are all digitized, that a motor becomes a battery and a transmission becomes some type of other digital item, a sensor. But they've come here, they've started their business, they've been able to be successful, they do an outstanding job, and shortly thereafter, they acquire a location where they lease with option to buy. Shortly thereafter, they purchase a home next door with a lease with an option to buy. Shortly thereafter, buying the home, they obtain a building next to their building that's been closed for over 30 years with a lease with an option to buy. And now it's here before you for a special permit. Meeting with the Phil Droming, there was a certain piece of property that was adjacent to the property that they are selecting to have the cars located. And that property was owned by somebody else. They've also entered into a lease with an option to buy. So again, a migrant community coming here, but also being part of the fabric of the economic success of Springfield and Massachusetts and this country. So I salute them. I'm here, and I respectfully ask you all to really give them strong consideration. We've met with the local councilor, Melvin Edwards. We've met with the neighborhood council, and they've also have letters of support for them, and we've been working with them for quite some time. They were also recipient of ARPA funds from the city of Springfield. They've utilized that to their best advantage. They've also hired local folks from the South End community. They've also have been involved with Putnam School and have trained some of the students that are training in Putnam to learn the electrical mechanic. Sabas? Montesano, okay. And so they're working with our youth, they're working with the community, and they're just trying to do what every American person wants to do, be part of the American dream. So I hope you can give them some strong consideration. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Representative Gonzalez. Are there any further individuals to speak in favor of the special permit present in person? And before we move on with the hearing, I see Councilor Perez, you have your hand up. We are still in the hearing portion, but do you have a point that needs to be recognized at this portion? Okay.
I wait until the conclusion of the hearing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Is there anybody present at this time virtually who wishes to speak in favor of the special permit? Seeing none, is there anybody present in person or virtually wishing to speak in opposition to this special permit? Seeing none, finally, Madam Clerk, have we received any written testimony on this special permit?
We have. It was submitted to the City Council by email.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can you just state who the written testimony was from?
It was submitted by, hold on one second as I look up his name, a resident of the South End, Mr. Lombard.
Thank you. And that was transmitted to all councilors. And we are also in receipt of a letter from the South End Neighborhood Council that was transmitted to myself and included in your packets for the record. Seeing no further individuals present to speak in favor or opposition, at this time, are there any questions from the council while the hearing remains open? Councilor Perez, followed by Councilor Whitfield.
I think Councilor Perez hand was up from before.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilor Perez.
today I went unannounced to the property, just to have a view where with the property and if any violation in place, because I hear there was some concerns with parking. I did not notice any violation when it comes to that part, and as well, I spoke to the owner and reflected the 12 conditions by the planning department. At that time, it was informed by the owner that they didn't have no issues with adhering to the recommendations from the planning department. I just wanted to make the report part of the record. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Councilor Whitfield.
Counselor, I'm not used to the letters or statements not being read on the meetings. Is this new? If we get them emailed to us, they don't have to be read into the record?
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. So previously, during the COVID-19 pandemic authorization, we would read all written testimony that came into the record because that was the only way in which individuals could submit testimony. However, the practice prior to that and the practice that I've been following has just been to ensure that it was in the record that they were transmitted to all of us. So certainly, I think any counselor could request anything to be read into the record. Certainly, any counselor can read anything into the record. But that was just, the manner in which I was moving forward.
Yeah, because sometimes we don't always have time to hear everything or read everything that was sent. So if those two items could be read into the record, that would be very helpful for me.
Certainly. Counselor or Madam Clerk, I have the South End letter here, and I believe I also have the written testimony. Yes. No, please read it word for word into the record.
The resident at 39 Lombard Street, which is Philip Malmborg, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, submitted a letter to the City Council, which was transmitted by the City Council staff January 16th, 2023. It's regarding the owner and petitioner Peña Lopez Auto Repair LLC at 971 East Columbus Avenue. It reads, "Dear City Council, at this time, I am opposed to a special permit for motor vehicle sales for the property known as 971 East Columbus Avenue for the following reasons. Number one, this property is already being used as a separate business by Peña Lopez Auto Repair, a tire sale business. The space at this location is limited, and Peña Lopez Auto Repair is also using it to park the overflow from their business at 961 East Columbus Avenue there, as well as for employee parking. Number two, do not be fooled. There is a reason why this permit is being requested in the middle of January. I have lived on Lombard Street, the adjacent street, for a total of 67 years now, so I am an expert on this location. If you should drive by at this time of year, you will observe that the activity is relatively quiet. However, by the early summer months, there will occur a major and noticeable change. The business for Peña Lopez will double or even triple. This has happened every year since the summer of 2020. The resulting influx of business and customers, and I can tell you most definitely negatively impact this location, especially Lombard Street. If motor vehicle sales and eventually a used car lot is added to 971 East Columbus Avenue, you must take into consideration how the summer months will bring a significant influx of vehicles and customers to this location. Number three, in this day and age, a business is absolutely required to provide adequate customer parking. If motor vehicle sales are added to this business already at 971 East Columbus Avenue, then where will the additional customers park? Peña Lopez will undoubtedly fence off an area used for motor vehicle sales. So, how much space will that leave for their employee parking as well as for customer parking coming to the two businesses at this location? They already have a major issue with customer parking coming to their business at 961 East Columbus Avenue during the summer months. In a nutshell, there is none. And customers, vendors end up parking illegally, parking over the sidewalk and on the no parking side of the street. An overflow of vehicles coming to 971 East Columbus Avenue, which is also limited space, would potentially have customers parking on the Columbus Avenue or turning down my street, Lombard Street, which is already overburdened by Peña Lopez Auto Repair and their ever-expanding influx of vehicles. The City Council also needs to revisit the original permit given to 961 East Columbus Avenue, also owned by Peña Lopez Auto Repair, to address the violations to condition number 7, which was put in place by the City Council to protect the residents of my street. Violations to condition number 7 are ongoing, even though language in the permit states that compliance with these conditions is required. In conclusion, due to the business already at this location, questionable customer parking, the limited space available, a considerable increase in summer business, and the residents of Lombard Street who would be affected, motor vehicle sales should not be permitted at 971 East Columbus Avenue. Thank you. Signed, Philip Malmberg.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do you have the South End letter?
I do.
You can keep it.
The letter from the South End Citizens Council, which is signed by Leo Florian, was dated November 15th, 2022. It's addressed to the Springfield City Council and reads, Dear President Letterman, at the South End Citizens Council Board of Directors meeting held on November 9th, 2022, a presentation was made by PLAR, Peña Lopez Auto Repair, regarding a project located on East Columbus Avenue. A request for a special permit to sell up to 5 cars and operate a Massachusetts inspection station located at 961-971 East Columbus Avenue property was discussed, and after answering all the board members' questions, it was voted to support this petition. Again, we would appreciate your support on this matter.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Whitfield, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Letterman. That's all I wanted. I wanted to hear the letters read into the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Are there any further questions while the hearing remains open from any members of the City Council? Councilor Govan.
I guess I had a question in response to the letter that was read by the resident on Lombard Street. And we probably won't know the answer to this. I'm not sure if he went to the South End Community Center meeting where they had this deliberation. But I guess the question for the petitioners, so at 961, you're doing business there as well, right? And you're acquiring that property. Is that what I understood Rep. Gonzalez say? Okay, so
Councilor
that
Govan,
was
I'm
my
just going to
question.
ask. I'm going to ask the petitioner to step to the podium, and if you could ask the question again, so that
Okay.
they can answer it from the
Okay.
microphone.
But
Absolutely. Yeah.
Go to the
Any proponent may answer. The hearing remains open, so we're still collecting evidence.
So I guess my question, if you could answer it again for the record. So the property at 961, you're doing business there and you're in the process of acquiring that property, correct?
Okay, we have the auto repair in 961 East Columbus Avenue. And then we bought the building behind us, 971. That's together, but that's gonna be separate.
Okay. Okay, and I guess my question is in regards to the parking situation, do you think you have ample parking
No,
for
we're
your
not gonna have
customers?
any problem with that part because we have affluent traffic. And that was at the beginning when we started because we were new and everybody wants to try with the new shop and all the stuff. But now everything is under control. It's all
So
controlled.
what you're saying is that the traffic is, they don't come there and park their cars, they come
No.
there, you work on the car, and then it leaves?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Can
Thank you.
Carlos help me? But because my English.
No, I understood you, thank you. Gracias.
Let me just be clear about the parking. And we've met with the gentleman at Lombard, and I take pride and joy in all residents of the South End community. Not only did I meet with him, I met with him and the Citizens Council to address some of the concerns which they addressed. But Gandara Mental Health Center has just taken over the building next door. And many of the problems and the ills, including when the police department went down there, and I, with code enforcement, went down there. And the cars that the gentleman was claiming that were visiting them, were not visiting them. We saw the 2 individuals that were coming from that car. They were at a different location in that street. So every single car that was, causing traffic on Lombard Street was not associated to that business. And the business of Gandara is where they have social workers that just go in and come out. So they're always on the street. But The building that they have just recently purchased on the side of East Columbus actually was suggested by the gentleman from Lombard Street because that was a relative of his. And having now the parking that they can go through the back alleviates a lot of the problems that they were having in Lombard Street at the time, which were already addressed previously.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a quick question for the proponents. If the young lady will step back to the podium, or
Petitioner.
the speaker. That's okay. I promise I'll be quick. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, good evening. So I just want to be respectful to Mr. Lombard's letter and address his concerns. I look here at the plans that were given to us. You're going to have one entryway and one exit way, correct?
Uh-huh.
Is that going to be on East Columbus itself?
In the 971 East Colombo, we have an entry and an exit, as you show in a little map. And then
Right, this map.
Uh-huh.
But that's the location you want to move into
Yeah.
and acquire the property, right? And so you're only asking for five for sale cars?
Yes, but I repeat, as I said before, it's not gonna be because we're gonna park in 5 cars at the moment together. It's because sometimes when the client leave a car, it's because they don't want to invest more money, then we can park in 1 or 2 cars.
Right.
I mean, because we don't want to be in any violation.
Right,
So it's
I
just
understand.
put the sign and say we can sell with
Gotcha.
any problem.
Are you going to be doing any auto repairing there
Excuse-
as well? Are you going to be doing any auto repairing there as well?
The auto repair is on another side.
Oh, it's on
What do
the,
you mean?
okay, so technically, okay. But there's also, I'm just trying to think, just thinking of Mr. Lombard's, honestly, I don't see it because there's other businesses that sell cars there without any problem. So I'm trying to ask to see do you see any potential issue with the traffic there yourself?
I don't think we're going to have any problem with traffic.
That's what I thought. Okay. All right. I was just asking, just trying to be respectful to Mr. Lombard's concern. And Mr. President, I have to say that, thank you so much. Gracias. I have to say, Mr. President, that I know the location well. I think it's a perfect fit for this job, for this kind of business. And so those are my question. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the proponent, how many parking spaces do you have?
In the property that we are trying to get the permit, we can count more than 12, but we're only going to have using 1 or 2 just for the permit that we're requesting.
On your current location or where you're at currently, how many parking spaces do you have?
In the 971, it's like a 12, I guess. In the 961, we have a yard, and in that yard have more than 12, 13, like a 20. We can count like a 35 parking for both properties together.
Altogether? Okay. And you're only taking up 5 spaces out of all the parking spaces?
Excuse me?
You're only taking up 5 spaces of the parking spaces for auto sales?
Yeah, but I repeat again, it's not gonna be because we're gonna put a dealer. No, that's not the way that we wanna work. It's because our main concern is because we are an auto repair. And in case of as we have right now, for example, 1 or 2 cars in the yard and we wanna sell it, we can do anything because we don't have the permit. Because if we put the sign, we're gonna make a violation for the city, and we don't wanna do that.
Well,
That's why.
Even if you wanted to sell, if you get the special permit, you could sell. My question was just, I wanted to also address Mr. Lombard's concerns, just to see how many parking spaces you had. I don't have concerns with how you sell your cars at all. I mean, that's your business. So I just wanted to know. And then also one of the suggestions was to put a fence in the back because there's like a chain fence. Are you all prepared to do that?
We have many recommendations for the planning board, I guess, and we're working on it right now. Let's put the fence, and let me explain something. Before we bought the building, that fence was in that condition, but we didn't know that we had to fix it right away because was the winter and all the part, and now we're working on that part. It's just putting up the fence, and that's it.
Right.
This we want to fix that.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Are there any further questions for the petitioner while the hearing remains open? Say again, any further questions while the hearing remains open? Seeing none, without objection, I'll now declare that the hearing is closed. You can be seated.
Thank you.
And we'll enter into any deliberation amongst the council prior to a vote. Councilor Edwards.
I'm going to speak in support of this application. This is East Columbus Avenue. It's a commercial district. It's an appropriate use, and considering the terms that we make these determinations by, the questions regarding Lombard Street, this business was a auto repair prior to this present iteration. What the permit that is before us is for East Columbus Avenue. There's an appropriate number of cars, and as was stated by the applicant, the purpose is not to have cars just sitting there on a regular ongoing basis. The type of work that they do quite often is very expensive, and people will come in and find, because they specialize in electrical work, sometimes the value of the work that's necessary is higher than what people can either afford or when compared to the value of the vehicle. This allows them to legally sell any vehicle that is left there as a bailment. And as such, regardless of what is going on Lombard Street, I have very much sympathy for the person who spoke in opposition. His concerns are legitimate, but they are also impacted by the other businesses in the area as well. But just a few hundred yards south of this location is Belize. And also there is two car washes. This is a commercial district. I believe in the pipeline right now is the potential for a cannabis retail operation a little bit further down on the same strip. And of course, this is the entryway to the casino. So it is an appropriate use as based on the conditions that we consider when granting special permits. And I am very much in support of this operation getting its permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. Is there any further deliberation? Councilor Govan.
I just also want to speak up in support of this petition. I think that the trajectory of the business since just 2020 has been impressive, and what Rep. Gonzalez reported regarding the history, I think it is an appropriate location. I've driven by there, and I agree, Belize being right up the street selling cars, it's a big business, and this micro business here, I think, is ready to grow, and I think that we should support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Is there any further deliberation? Say again, before our vote, is there any further deliberation? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on approval of the special permit.
On approving the special permit, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The permit is approved. Councilor Fenton on the reasons.
The specific site and is an appropriate location for such a use, structure, or condition. The use as developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood. Adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use. We incorporate the planning staff analysis into the decision as the basis of the findings.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton. Madam Clerk, without objection, please call the roll to accept the reasons.
On accepting the reasons, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient and the reasons are accepted. Congratulations. Madam Clerk, please call the next item, item 6.
Item 6 is for a special permit to install 8-foot-high fencing at the property known as 1015 Wilbraham Road.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Special permit hearing will be run in accordance with the same rules as previously stated. At this time, the proponents will begin. Please state your name and address for the record.
Peter Garvey, Director of Capital Asset Construction for the City of Springfield, 104 Favorite Lane, East Long Meadow, Mass. We're asking the council to allow us to put an 8-foot fence around the new athletic field at Duggan. We come in front of you because we need an 8-foot fence for security issues. The school department has requested that we do that. So we're going from 6 to 8-foot fence. We're about roughly 60 feet from the property line. Again, it'll be right around the athletic complex. 60 feet from the rear parking lot on the south side. That's the residential abutters. So we're way in from their property line. I think everyone has a picture of where the fence is going to be located.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. Does that conclude your remarks?
Yes.
All right, we'd ask that you step aside then. Is there anybody else present in person or virtually to speak in favor of the special permit? Seeing none, is there anybody present in person or virtually to speak in opposition to the special permit? Seeing none, are there any questions for the petitioner while the hearing remains open? Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you. Peter, is this a common practice to put fences, thank you, Mr. President, is this a common practice to put the fences around athletic fields that are built at the schools?
Yes. Central would be the only other athletic field that is like this one. I think they have a 12-foot fence around that one.
Yes. Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Whitfield. Are there any further questions? Councilor Allen.
Thanks, Mr. President. Yeah, Pete, thanks. Did you say Central has a 12-foot fence?
I believe it's 12 foot, yes.
And is there a reason that this would be 8 rather than 12, or is it just mainly being for?
Yeah, this is a little bit more wide open, and the look, we don't want it to be too institutionalized. The 12-foot fence is, you kind of shoved in the corner at the central field is more adjacent to a wooded area. We feel like this would be wide open, you could see in there. So to go with a 12-foot fence would probably be, like I said, a little bit institutional.
Gotcha.
We did meet with this Pine Point Neighborhood Council, as well as a 16-acre council, just kind of in a no man's land, in between councils.
So this is between Pine Point and 16 acres?
Yeah.
And have you met with the neighbors? Those are the civic associations, that's great. I mean, are the neighbors?
They've been notified. We also have a zoning board of appeals meeting on Wednesday for the lighting, because we have some lighting that needs to get approved by the zoning board of appeals. I did receive a call today from a resident at 78 Kirk Street. And he was worried more about the noise from the kids than the fence.
So is it contemplated that there will be lighting, that there will be night games, et cetera?
Yeah, it'll be run much like Central High School. It'll be run by the athletic department. There'll be permits issued. It'd be very similar to Central, if not identical.
And how about noise? Will there be bands and such and such? I mean, I know of this isn't in my ward, but it's very close to my ward, just across Breckwood, basically. But the Western New England field, there's the Campus Neighbors Group, which is in that area of Springfield. They became a group because of their concerns at Western New England noise at the football field, et cetera. I'm hoping that doesn't happen here, but we've got neighbors in the loop already, et cetera.
That was one of the concerns. It was more from the neighbor today, was more about the housing in the neighborhood, the kids that live in the houses adjacent to his house. You know, they have, I don't know how many residents that live there, but they're college kids that are living in a residential neighborhood. That was really the chief complaint today.
I'm not that familiar with the housing in that ward. That's Ward 5. And Ward 7 is adjacent to it, a little ways away. But I believe there has been a fair amount of housing in that area, college housing in that area. Have you been in touch at all with Captain Woodward of the Western New England Police Department?
I've been in contact with Dave Rosinski, which is the facilities manager over at Western New England College. They were in support of it. The neighbor across the street where the liquor store is, that Patty's Plaza, they called, they were in support of it. So we did have some calls that supported it. It's going to be a great amenity to the neighborhood as well as the city of Springfield.
It's terrific that we're going to get it back, and the name Ted Plum Field and everything. I just, wouldn't be a bad idea probably to have that facility manager you mentioned, mention it to this Captain Woodford, I think that's his name. He has been the captain of security there at Western New England as long as I've been a counselor and well before it. So I'd say somewhere around 20 years, and he's always tuned in to where the student housing is and where there might be a problem and that sort of thing. It'd probably be a good idea for us to at least be ahead of that one.
Sure.
That's all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. We're going to go to Councilor Click Bruce, followed by Councilor Davila.
Hey, I just want to voice my support for this project. I did have an opportunity to meet with Pete and his team to view some of the specs and the plans of the project. And just the first phase, I believe there's going to be some other phases going on, but Pete had my support. And then also I will look to reach out to the residents in that area to let them know about the project and also to get some of their concerns that they may have. So again, I'm in support of this project. And thank you, Pete, for reaching out to the 16 Acres Council and the Pine Point Council. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Click Bruce. Councilor Davila, followed by Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Peter. Some quick questions. So is this fence going to be like the one on SciTech? I think it's SciTech where, is that where the Popeyes in the corner is, that big fence they have there?
Central.
No,
It'll
it's
be
not
an
Central.
8-foot fence.
Come, I can't hear you, Peter. Would you mind saying it again? I couldn't hear you.
It'll be an 8-foot fence, not a 12 or 15-foot fence.
Right, but that's going to be a chain link. It's going to
Correct.
be
A black vinyl chain link fence.
right, like the one next to on State Street, on the football field they have there. You know what I'm talking about?
Commerce. He's talking about commerce.
Commerce.
Well, Commerce
Thank you, Councilor Quick. Yes, Commerce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's got to be 20 feet or so.
Oh, is
That's,
it 20? Okay, so it's
we're
going to be
way
way
away
high.
from
Okay.
any public ways. We're, I think, 150 feet from Breckwood Boulevard.
Well, that was my next question. So how deep is it going to be from the abutters, the actual?
60 feet on the south, 85 feet to Breckwood Boulevard.
Okay, so it's going to be way deep. Okay, good. So it's going to be it's going to be black
Black
chain
Vinyl.
link fence. I'm sorry?
Black vinyl fence.
Black vinyl, okay, good. And the last question is, Peter, what's the primary purpose of putting that's going to be around the whole field, right?
The primary purpose is to keep the balls within the field as well as to keep people out of the field when it's not permitted.
So for security reasons?
Correct.
Okay. And that's going to be around the whole field?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you, Peter. Thank you,
welcome.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Brown, followed by Councilor Govan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think you kind of alluded to my concern. Now, you're saying it's going to be the same fence as Central, correct?
It won't be as high as Central. It'll be a newer fence. It'll be a black vinyl fence, so.
And where
where I hear red flags is where you're saying keeping people out. One thing I don't kind of like is when that field, people use it. Regular residents, families, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. So now that we're making it pretty, now the neighborhood no longer can use it by putting that fence there is what you're saying, correct?
It'll be part of the stadium itself. The other ball fields are open to the public, but this will be permitted. So, it's to keep people out at night, or, when it's closed after dusk, or when it's not permitted.
And what I'm saying, so say 7 o'clock, a Pee-wee football team want to go and just go and do something there, they won't be able to, right?
It'll be permitted, so they'll have to get a permit to play on the field. Just like they permit all the basketball facilities within the schools, it's the same model as that.
Yeah, and where I had that's exactly where I had the issue, because there's a lot of people, I'm a coach, so there's a lot of people who use those fields without permits, because why, they just don't. Like sometimes if it's a rainy day or somebody using a track somewhere and something where they just have to quickly do a practice and stuff, it happens more often than none, where the community will have to use that location, and then now they have to go through the permit process isn't a convenient process, not for the kids and coaches and the community. So that's kind of the only kind of issue I have is trying to figure out ways, because I call the mayor's office. Pat's been good as far as getting space, but it's always a challenge for me when all these coaches reach out to me trying to find space, if it be track and field, basketball, football, and when we don't have everything locked up and lock and key, hey, I got the key, now you can't use the field, it makes it a lot easier if they can just drive and go up on it. But of course, I know if my colleague researched it, I always support I trust my colleague. I know he does a great job as far as keeping up with what his constituents want in the area. So of course I will support it, but I just would just always still reiterate the fact that, we have to at least always keep in mind, even though we have great ideas, sometimes it's the little guy who's getting the short end of the stick, being the residents who are not going to be able to have access to it based on having to get permits. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Govan.
I guess that was my question, was who's going to have access to the facility and who's going to be able to use it? But I guess it was just answered. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Are there any further questions for the petitioner? Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I have kind of the same concern, because to reduce crime and to keep kids out of trouble, having access to go to a park, will they have to pay for the permit to use the park for practices and stuff like that? Or just to have a day or a fundraiser or anything like that?
I don't think the city charges for permits for parks.
They do not charge?
I'm not sure of that, but I'm pretty sure that it's.
I'm pretty sure that they do. Because we rent parks all the time for activities and events. So I'm pretty sure that they do. But when we build these locations, it should be neighborhood friendly, that folks will have access to go and play. So, we need all the mechanisms that we can to support our youth in the community and families, because there's also folks that want to play softball and things like that. And so I just think that when these parks and these facilities are getting built, we need to consider that. I know that we want to keep them beautiful and useful, but there's also grants that can help improve open space, even CPA grant is one of them that can improve open space once they are developed. So I just wanted to raise that, like, we should do as much as we can for the residents and the families and the community. And, you know, I think, I know that my mom lives on Wall Street right next to Duggan, and me and my nieces and nephews and my granddaughter, we go play in that field all the time and exercise and do all that. And so now I think it's gonna be closed off. We may not have that opportunity.
The only portion we're putting the fence around is the stadium. The ball fields will still be open. There'll be a walking trail around Duggan. So there's a lot more amenities. There's an exercise area that's outside the stadium. So there's a lot of other amenities that are going to be open as opposed to just the field, the athletic field.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that.
Well, thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Does that conclude your remarks?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any further questions relative to this permit while the hearing remains open? Seeing none, without objection, I'll now declare that the hearing is closed. Is there any deliberation amongst the council relative to this permit prior to a vote? Seeing no deliberation, at this time, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on approval of the special permit.
On approval of the permit, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst. Counselor Hurst. Away, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes. Madam Clerk, can you please attempt to recognize Councilor Hurst once again?
Counselor Hurst.
Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
The votes are sufficient. Permit is approved. Councilor Fenton on the reasons.
The specific site is an appropriate location for such a use, structure, or condition. The use as developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood. Adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use, and we incorporate the planning staff analysis into the decision as the basis of the findings.
Without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll to accept the reasons.
On accepting the reasons, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient and the reasons are accepted. Madam Clerk, please call the last item.
Last item is an amendment to Article 4, Section 4.7.114, Adult Use Marijuana.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is a zone change hearing. Will be run in accordance with the same rules as previous special permit hearings were at this meeting. At this time, the proponents are recognized for 20 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. President.
Councilor Fenton.
Recusing myself from this discussion.
Thank you, Councilor Fenton. Madam Clerk, please let the record reflect that Councilor Fenton is recused, and just reset your time here for the proponents, and at this time, the proponents may begin.
Thank you.
Mr.
Good evening.
President, point of order.
Yes,
Mr.
Councilor
President,
Brown.
I also would like to be recused.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. This time, Madam Clerk, please let the record reflect that Councilor Brown will also be recused from this vote. And at this time, we will now recognize the proponents. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. Ellen Fryman with Schatz, Schwartz and Fenton, 1441 Main Street in Springfield. Opening a marijuana facility is a long, arduous, and expensive process. I am here tonight on behalf of PS Springfield LLC, which holds a city license for a marijuana retail facility, to request your help in easing up on one aspect of this process, which has no detrimental effect to the city. Currently, the city zoning regulations require that after you get a special permit, you must wait until the provisional license from the Cannabis Control Commission is in hand to submit a building permit application to the building department. We are requesting that 6 words, in quotes, apply for a building permit, close quotes, be deleted from the zoning ordinance so that an applicant having a license, a special permit, and a host community agreement with the city and otherwise complies in all respects with city and local requirements is confident that its plans are final and that it will receive a provisional license from the CCC, be able to submit an application to the building department so that once the provisional license has been issued, it is ready to hit the ground running and is not just at that point starting the building department application and review process. I have set out in a letter, which I hope you have seen, the reasons why I am asking the City Council to support and vote in favor of this change, which I will reveal. The marijuana retail industry is becoming more and more competitive. Now we have Connecticut businesses at Springfield's doorstep, taking away business once available to Springfield retail stores. The city should be as accommodating as possible to help local businesses get off the ground and not lose out to businesses in neighboring communities which can open their doors more quickly. As I am sure you are aware, since Springfield issued its first RFP for retail marijuana in April 1, 2019, despite the city's authorization to issue 15 licenses, due in part to stringent state and local regulations, only 3 businesses are open, and none of them are businesses which received their license in the second RFP round issued January 26, 2021. Although the Planning Board voted not to endorse the amendment to the zoning ordinance, it made its decision based on a misunderstanding. It is not accurate that this change to the ordinance will affect only one business. Amending this section of the marijuana ordinance will affect and help all businesses seeking to open in Springfield. Hopefully, PS Springfield will not be the last marijuana retail facility in Springfield. Going forward, all marijuana retail businesses will be able to apply for a building permit before having a provisional license in hand. Allowing the applicant and future businesses to begin the building process once it has final construction drawings ready doesn't suggest or mean that the applicant still doesn't have to comply with all CC regulations. They must still dot every I and cross every T with both the city and the state, and we are not asking them not to. If by chance the provisional license requires a change in the construction drawings or plans already submitted to the building department as part of the building permit application, it would then be up to the applicant to submit a revision to the building department. But it has been a rare occurrence that the CCC has required that changes be made to a submission. And if an applicant is confident that its plans are ready for both the CCC approval and a building permit application, and a building permit, the applicant should be able to proceed and take that risk. Another reason the Planning Board voted not to support the ordinance change was its position that because other Springfield retail marijuana businesses, and there were 3 of them, I remind you, have had to delay their filings for building permit applications until they receive their provisional license, that all future retail businesses need to experience the same hardship. As mentioned, this industry is becoming more and more competitive, with one retail store in the region already closing due to market saturation. Causing delays in store openings for no legitimate reasons are not helping these businesses nor the residents of the city of Springfield. In the case of the applicant, the store will be new construction, as the property is currently a vacant lot. In this case, the construction period will be much longer than a retrofit of an existing space. But regardless, whether it is new construction or a retrofit, time is money, as construction costs and inflation continue to rise at unprecedented levels. We are not aware of any equivalent provision in the Springfield zoning ordinance where state and/or federal permits are required as a precondition for the filing of a building permit application. As mentioned, the applicant has already obtained a special permit from the City Council, which is normally the only prerequisite prior to proceeding with the filing for a building permit. What we are requesting is a quick and easy fix to the Springfield zoning ordinance. We are simply asking that 6 words, or apply for a building permit, be deleted. But while it is a small change, it will have a big impact. For these reasons, we ask you to vote in favor to modify the ordinance for the benefit of all of Springfield, to allow companies such as PS Springfield LLC to keep the permit process moving forward without unreasonable delay, so it can have the opportunity to operate a profitable and successful business in Springfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Fryman. Is there anybody else present in person to speak in favor? Mr. McCollum.
Ryan McCullum, 12 Long Meadow Street, Long Meadow, Mass. Here with the same client as Attorney Fryman. How much time do we have?
Currently, the proponents have utilized 6 minutes, 50 seconds.
Okay,
and
because
you get 20
I know
minutes.
there's somebody else on
Yes, there
as
are
well. Yep.
individuals present virtually.
And to that point, we heard from the planning board and the planning director that this isn't good to do because it's only helping one business. We have another business about to testify to say this would help them as well. Also, there's times when government helps one business. Sometimes that happens. Regardless, not to go over everything that Attorney Fryman went through, the biggest one for me is this makes logical sense. Our client is going to bear 100% risk. So they're going to build at their own risk to the CCC saying those windows aren't dark enough when they come in. And so they have to pay the money to have those windows darkened to make sure they're dark enough. The other piece where this makes 100% logical sense to move forward is we're losing time. So these folks want to shovel in the ground at this vacant lot on a busy part of Boston Road that's been vacant for too long in the summer. And so they would be almost built out by now, if not already built out, which means that much sooner we would be hiring local residents to have jobs. That much sooner we would have tax dollars coming in because they would be open and ready to sell products 6 months sooner. That much sooner that vacant lot would have $1 million plus building on it. And so instead of having them sit on their hands, they actually took the initiative to buy raw materials now, considering supply chain issues, considering skyrocketing price of materials, and they have it sitting in a warehouse ready to go. So also in this industry, there are folks who do get HCAs, do get special permits, do get licenses, but they don't have the money ready to go. So they're, the cities or towns are waiting on them. These folks are ready to go. And so, again, waiting another 6 months for them to do so is only going to take time. I want the other gentleman to speak, but the last piece is on the CCC. They are not in a position to tell a city or town they can't issue a building permit. And so it's on them, it's on us to make sure what we build is up to their standards so that we don't have to go back and fix it. But even if we do have to go back and fix it, there's no risk to the city for that. So, we hope you look favorably upon this. It will impact other businesses coming forward. The CCC is not in the same position they were when the first round went through, and the first 4 got their provisional even before they were ready to go. And so, there's been questions about why is it taking so long. It's the volume of applications that are coming to the CCC now, and also something I agree with and I think is great is social equity social equity applicants and economic empowerment applicants are allowed to jump the line. And so you can be a queue if you're not social equity or economic empowerment, be 20th in line, and next month be 25th. And so you have to wait. And so every time they're waiting is more time that we're not having tax revenue, jobs, and a vacant lot have a development on it. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, City Council.
Thank you, Mr. McCollum. Is there anybody else present in person to speak in favor of the zone change? Seeing none, is there anybody present virtually to speak in favor of the zone change? Chair recognizes Matt Yee. Mr. Yee, please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Matthew Yee, 75 Pearl Street, South Hadley, Massachusetts. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Enlight Cannabis Dispensary LLC. We're looking to build a dispensary on 459 Main Street, Indian Orchard. Right now, we're in the same predicament. And as mentioned, a change to this ordinance does not only affect one business, it affects multiple businesses. Without the ability to gain a building permit, we can't move forward with construction, which is a major holdup. Had we had a building permit in place earlier this year, well, we would most likely already be open and operational, generating revenue and taxes. So this ordinance that's in place really prohibits us from moving forward. We're paying rent at the location, we're paying to heat it, we're paying for electricity. Those amounts do add up, and with the current climate of construction and the delays there, it makes it very difficult to make progression, and unfortunately, causes a lot of money to be spent on a project that is sitting idle. The change to the ordinance would allow that construction to move on while we're waiting for the CCC to process our provisional license. This, as mentioned before, the CCC is seen a bit of a slowdown. Not sure if it's from the amount of licenses that they are trying to process, but the timetables have been extended, which creates a major hurdle for businesses trying to get operational and up and running. So by modifying this ordinance, we would be able to get through the construction phase more rapidly and then open our doors in a much more timely fashion and get those doors open, generating revenue. That's what we're looking to do. Get some good staff in there and get up and running. But I'm in full support of the modification of this ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Yee. Are there any further individuals present virtually to speak in favor? Seeing none, before we proceed to any opponents, I see Councilor Hurst has his hand up. Councilor Hurst, is there?
No, I will wait until after the opponents and proponents. Just have a question for the proponents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Walsh, are you looking for the same?
Yes, I'll wait till the appropriate time.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Walsh. When people raise their hand virtually, I'm going to recognize them when they raise their hand, just as if you had stood up in the chamber, just for reference. And so, because I don't know if you have a point of order, a point of information, I have no way of knowing what the hand is raised for. So at this time, we'll now move to the opponents. And so if there's anybody present in person to speak in opposition to this zone change amendment, we'd ask that they step forward at this time. And please state your name and address for the record, and that the floor is yours.
Sure. Good afternoon, Council President. My name is Talia G. I'm at 36 Court Street, Springfield, Massachusetts. As you know, I'm a first associate city solicitor for the city of Springfield that's been handling the marijuana operations. I did send a legal opinion to the attorney for the council, Ken Shea, as well as Phil Dromey. I didn't see them on. I saw Attorney Shea on, but I didn't see Phil Dromey on, so I thought since I was already in City Hall. Oh, there's Phil. Hi. Since I was already in City Hall, I thought it made sense to just come to council chambers. In any event, the petitioners have asked for a change in the zoning ordinance to remove the requirement to have a provisional license before a building permit can be issued. Essentially, what the petitioners are asking is that the city council change a law for one business. I know that Mr. Yee has spoken about his experience, but I want to be clear, Mr. Yee is not in the same position as the petitioner because Mr. Yee already has his provisional license. So he can obtain a building permit without assuming that all other requirements have been met. Additionally, what the petitioner is asking the city council to do is to ignore the CCC's regulations. In the December 5th, 2022 email that I did ask to be forwarded to the council, I quoted the CCC's regulations, which state construction or renovation related to such plans may not begin until the commission has granted approval. So the reality is, even if the council were to amend the ordinance as requested, the reality is that the petitioners are still not able, they should not be starting construction until they have their plans approved by the CCC. So I know that Mr. McCollum has stated the CCC is not in a position to direct the city about how they issue ordinances, or excuse me, permits. But the reality is the city wants to do what would support the CCC. So the city's current ordinance as it stands is in compliance with the CCC regulations, and therefore I would ask, my legal opinion is that it should remain in compliance with the CCC regulations. I will say that the CCC regulations are being reviewed as we speak by the Cannabis Control Commissioners. Perhaps they may change something at a later date, but for right now, as it stands, their regulations require that their plans be approved before shovels go into the ground. I do want to, I want to recognize Attorney Fryman's zealous advocacy for her client, as she should, and she's pointed out that this is a costly business. And I will agree that this is a costly business. It's highly regulated. That's not unique to cannabis operations in Springfield, though. That's unique to cannabis operations all over the country. As Peyton Shubrick has said openly, it takes approximately $2 million to open the door. That's a very expensive business. And while I think that the city is always looking to help businesses where it can, I don't think that the city council wants to get into the position where we are changing ordinances in support of one business. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney G. At this time, Councilor Kern, did you have a question?
For Attorney G, if I can.
If it would be all right if we take usually I like to take all the testimony and then move to questions, if that's okay with you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Kern. At this time, we'll now move to rebuttal. Rebuttal by the proponents. Proponents will have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that what Attorney G said, that, again, we're not asking permission to be able to start construction. We're just asking that wording to delete the requirement that they have the provisional license before applying for the building permit. So they have it in hand and then ready to be shovel ready and to be able to start construction day one once you get the provisional license. So we're not doing anything to controvert the CCC regulations. Again, all these retailer companies, they are very concerned about making sure they do comply with all the requirements. They don't want to jeopardize their license. So all we're asking is that we can start the process, have the permit in hand, and again, that's consistent with the CCC regulations. And also, again, we also mentioned that it isn't just for one company. We don't think that we hope we're not going to be the last company to come to Springfield to open a business. We hope that we will eventually be able to have all of the licenses issued. So that, again, not just for one company. Thanks.
Thank you, Attorney Fryman. Mr. McCollum?
Yep.
On the rebuttal.
If Inlight got a provisional that was last month, and so they did lose months. They did contact me and say, "Hey, Ryan, we have the same issue. We want to start building and we can't because of this ordinance or this part of the ordinance." And so, I don't want to belabor the point on the one business issue, right? But there's one business that's a couple blocks away from us that has a lot of special things, and so you are allowed, even if it was one business, to change something that will affect one business if you cease to do so. That's the power you have as duly elected officials. As far as the CCC, in that wording, they say, the commission shall review architectural plans for building or renovation of a marijuana establishment. Construction or renovation related to such plans may not begin until the commission has granted approval. Doesn't say till the commission has granted a provisional license. These applications are very, very lengthy, and they give approval throughout the process. And so you can get approval for your architectural plans and not have a provisional license. And so if we're getting into the letter of the law, it says until you've been granted approval, not till you've been granted a provisional license. Surrounding towns are more aggressive legally than we are. So I have a client that is currently demoing in a surrounding town to bring a cannabis dispensary online without a provisional license. They're doing so. They do so in other towns, and it's a risk not to the city at all if you allow folks to start building before their provisional license. You've given them approval. They've gone through a long process with you all at the city level, both with the council and with the mayor's office, et cetera. And so allowing them to build and not sit on their hands is a plus, because they're going to be open that much sooner.
Thank you, Mr. McCollum. Is there any further rebuttal from the proponents, virtually or in person? Seeing none, at this time, opponents are also entitled to 5 minutes of rebuttal if they wish to use it. Attorney G.
Thank you, Council President Letterman. If I may quickly just point to the CCC regulations that I'll spare you reading them out loud, but what they do say is that the approval process reviews all of the specifications of the architectural plans. The reason part of that review process is what goes into obtaining a provisional license. And so from the city's perspective, once we know that someone has a provisional license, then we know that the architectural plans have been approved. But as Mr. McCollum says, plans are approved at different points in time. We're not privy to that information. But once someone comes with a provisional license, then we know that their architectural plans have been approved. I think it is a dangerous position to equip someone with a license and say, well, just hold on to your shovels until you get that provisional license from the CCC, and then you can put them into the ground. To me, it makes smarter sense to leave the ordinance as it is currently written and require that someone come and get their building permit once they have the provisional license. And the building permit is not an arduous process. And once they have that provisional permit, then they can obtain the building permit and they can start construction immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney G. Is there any further rebuttal, virtually or in person, on behalf of the opponents? Seeing none. At this time, we'll now move to questions for the proponents and opponents from councilors while the hearing remains open. Several councilors have expressed interest in asking a question already, and we have several in the queue as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in-person, virtual, in-person, virtual. We'll start in person with Councilor Curran, and then we'll go virtually to Councilor Hurst.
Just to Attorney G or Attorney Friedman, is this particular zoning law particular to the city of Springfield, or is this across the board? Is every municipality subject to this, what we're looking to change?
It's whatever, it's different in each municipality based on their zoning regulations. So if you take a survey, you'll see some that have similar language and some that don't. So it's whatever is the local desire and preference. But where there are more retail facilities, there aren't these provisions.
So other municipalities are not subject to this restriction?
No.
Whereas in Springfield you are?
You can make the change. It has no effect on the state regulations or any other municipality. It's all local.
So in your opinion, what would be the opposition, if you could foresee any, from the Cannabis Control Commission if we were to change this tonight?
They wouldn't have they would not have an opposition to it.
They would not have opposition?
No, not at all.
How do you know that?
We haven't found a case where the CCC came to a city or town and said, hey, you gave them a building permit before they got a provisional. Most cities and towns with flourishing cannabis industries. I don't want to name them all, but they don't have this provision. And the CCC has not slapped the town or the city on their wrist for being out of compliance of what their regulations may say.
And one further question for Attorney Friedman. Your statement that the Cannabis Control Commission would not have opposition is, your opinion is why? Why not?
Why is your opinion that they wouldn't have opposition?
I mean, it's just not their jurisdiction to come into the city and look at zoning regulations.
Yeah, understood.
So,
thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Curran. Before we move to Councilor Hurst, Attorney G, if you wanted to answer the question as well, and just to tighten this up a little bit, because we have several proponents and opponents, I'm going to ask councilors to direct their questions to an individual. That is normally what we would do with this portion, and we would ask that individual then answer. And the councilor, at this point, it's really the councilor's time, so if the councilor is able to seek comment from anybody they'd like. But Attorney G, go ahead.
Thank you. I would say that I don't know that the petitioners really can speak for the CCC. I can tell you that I have received telephone calls myself from the CCC about particular operators. The petitioner or particular operators would not be privy to that information. So for the petitioner to say the CCC would not take issue with it or the CCC has not taken issue with it, I don't know that they would be privy to that information.
Well, I simply asked her her opinion. I wasn't asking her.
Yes.
I wasn't asking council to speak for the CCC. I was just asking her opinion as to it. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Councilor Curran. Attorney G. We'll now go virtually to Councilor Hurst, and then we'll come back in person to Councilor Davila. Councilor Hurst.
Thank you. This question is for Attorney G. Attorney G, are you of the opinion that the amendment to the zoning ordinance is in conflict with the CCC regulations? Is that your position?
Yes, it is, Councilor Hurst.
So I guess I didn't get that based off of what Attorney Fryman has said. Is the CCC saying, do they explicitly say that you cannot pull permits?
Well, I think that means that Attorney Fryman did a good job of advocating for her position. But I think, I don't want to speak for Attorney Fryman, so I can certainly let her speak for herself.
No, I'm asking you for your opinion.
Yes.
Are you saying that the CCC language specifically says that cities or that municipalities and towns cannot pull permits prior to getting a provisionary license?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That you have?
No, that is not what I'm saying.
That is not the opinion. So would you agree that they could pull permits but not start construction? And they would be in compliance with the CCC?
It would depend on where they were in their approval process with the CCC. So if I can water down my position, it might make more sense. So what I'm saying is the CCC's regulations require that your architectural plans be approved prior to you obtaining your provisional license. That is part of that provisional license approval process. And the city of Springfield's zoning ordinance requires that you obtain a provisional license before you can obtain a building permit. My position is that that should stay the status quo, because if you change things, then the city doesn't really have a way of knowing that someone's architectural plans were approved by the CCC before issuing the building permit without that provisional license in hand.
But I guess they couldn't build anyway if they didn't get the provisional license from the CCC.
That's exactly the point I'm making. That's correct.
I mean, I guess my thing is, if they're asking to get the permits now, your concern is you wouldn't know whether the architectural specs have been approved by the CCC, but they can't start building until the architectural specs are approved by the CCC anyway. So you would know because they wouldn't be able to start building. Like, I mean, do you follow me there, Attorney G?
I do,
Like,
but
your
what
goal
you're,
is no.
but what you're saying is that we would be relying on the operators to self-police when we could police them ourselves.
But I guess my thing is that the CCC would not approve them if the architectural specs weren't up to snuff, and they also wouldn't be able to start construction, if I'm understanding the law, until they're approved by the CCC. So the provision that Attorney Fryman is asking to amend, it's not allowing them to start construction because they wouldn't be able to do that anyway, correct?
I think there may be a few issues that are conflated. The position that I'm making is that the operator's architectural plans must be approved by the CCC before they can obtain a building permit from the city. And the way that they prove that they are, the way that they prove that their plans were approved by the CCC is by providing the provisional license to the building department to get their building permit.
Okay. Okay. Attorney Fryman, just a quick question for you, if you'll just indulge me for a quick second. Are you looking to get a permit only, or are you looking to construct? Is your position that? Go ahead.
Our position is that there is nothing in the CCC regulations that prohibits a city or town from allowing an applicant to obtain a building permit and have it in hand, but wait until it has the provisional license to start construction. So we're not asking to start construction, we're just asking that we be able to pull the building permit so we have it for when the provisional license is issued, and then we're ready to go without starting the building permit application process.
Because I mean, that doesn't make sense for you to be able to start construction and then for some reason you don't receive your provisionary
That's right.
license. And
That
you're
would-
halfway through
We're not
through
asking
the
to,
construction
we're not
period.
asking to make a change that allows construction to start
Got
without
it.
a provisional
That
license.
would be concerning. As you know, one of the original authors of the zoning ordinance, and as someone who has been to Colorado with a number of my colleagues and watched this process unfold, I'm of the opinion that we've got to make it as easy as possible on these marijuana businesses. It's extremely expensive, and as long as this particular amendment is not in conflict with the CCC regulations, I don't, on its face, have a problem with it, although I'll certainly listen to the rest of the testimony. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. We're going to go in person now to Councilor Davila, and then we will return virtually to Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a couple of questions. If I may start with Attorney Fryman, if I may. That's what
Attorney Fryman.
Good evening, Councilor Davila.
evening.
Basically, I guess I'm going to ask you to water this down for me, for the folks that are watching at home. If you allow me for a second, Mr. President, I just want to take a quick 30 seconds just to read what it is we're talking about. The current language ordinance reads, no adult use marijuana establishment may commence operations or apply for a building permit prior to its receipt of all required permits and approvals, including but not limited to its provisional license from the Cannabis Control Commission. The proposal and the question here today at hand is to change it to read, no adult use marijuana establishment may commence operations or apply for a building permit prior to its receipt of a special permit. No adult marijuana establishment may commence operations prior to its receipt of its provisional license from the Cannabis Control Commission. So basically, the current process is that, say, Mr. Jose and Mr. Cuervo come in, they get a special permit from us, they have to have a host agreement and the provisional license before they can put the shovel to the ground, correct?
They have to have the host community agreement, the special permit, and the provisional license before they start construction.
Correct, that's the
And
current.
and any other permit that's required.
Right, so that's the current process. What is being suggested here is that they still have to get a permit from us, correct? Then they have to, they will have to, before they begin operations, they still need a provisional license. They cannot open doors until they get a provisional license. However, they will be able to apply for a building permit prior to getting the provisional license, correct?
That's correct.
So that's the way I'm looking at this, that's shifting all the risk to the proponents, right? Is that
sorry.
pretty much what we're talking about? All
The risk, it's, they're not going to proceed to get a building permit and to go the cost of doing that until they're confident that they're going to get the provisional license.
right. So I'm thinking here, if I get a permit from this wise and knowledgeable body, but I don't have a provisional license yet, and I start building, or I apply to start building, I think that shows dedication and commitment to the neighborhood, to where I'm coming. Would you agree with that?
It's hard to hear, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know I'm in the last seat here, number 12.
So he's saying it shows confidence
Would
that
you-
you're going to build if you're going to actually.
Right, all along, again, someone mentioned, I think it was Attorney G or someone mentioned it's like $2 million to get to this point. So, they're not going to take any
Right.
uncalculated risk and do something that would risk or jeopardize their license at this point. They're not going to proceed with filing their building permit until they're confident, totally confident that they'll get the provisional license, having gone through all the other hurdles to open up a retail store.
Right, again, it will just shift all the risk to the proponent. Okay, thank you, Attorney, very, very kind of you. I do have a question, Mr. President, to Attorney G, if I may, and then I have a question for Phil after, and I will finish with that.
Yes, the floor.
Good evening, Attorney
remains
G.
with counsel.
Thank you for your presentation. I thought it was very thorough, very informative. Attorney, a couple of occasions, I believe, unless I heard you correctly, you say that we shouldn't change an ordinance for one business. Did I hear you correctly say that?
That is correct.
However, this will not apply to one particular business. It will apply to this business and everybody that comes after. This will be law if we change it.
Well, yes, but one business is asking you to change this ordinance because they do not like it. This one business does not like it. The other business that showed up here tonight, the ordinance doesn't even apply to them because they have a provisional license.
Right, I understand that, but Attorney, things change because they want to be more proficient, more efficient rather, and I guess you can make that argument for any law change.
Sure.
Okay, fair enough. All right, thank you, Attorney. Thank you. And one last question for Phil, if I may, Mr. President. Good evening, Phil. It's always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Quick question for you, Phil. I would love to hear your opinion, sir, honestly, because I see here that it says not approve. Can you walk me through this? I would love to hear what's in your mind.
I
is what I'm
tend to
saying.
be in full agreement with Attorney G. I do think this is a change for a specific business, and I am not a fan of changing the zoning ordinance, regardless of what regulation we're talking about, for a specific business. The city has regulations that all the other applicants who have applied for this particular license have had to follow, and to change this to allow this particular operation to move forward is, in my opinion, setting a bad precedent for the city's zoning ordinance. I also mentioned in my analysis that I'm in full agreement that there may be changes that are needed in this ordinance. I know the city council has met, I think, a couple of weeks ago to talk about this particular business. And to me, I think if we're going to change the ordinance, then it should be done comprehensively. We should sit down at the table like we did when we drafted them with the law department, the health department, the the planning department and the city council and go over what needs to be changed. I've heard there may be changes to the hours of operation. They may all be legitimate reasons to change the ordinance, but it should be done inclusively and comprehensively, not picking and choosing what particular regulations we're going to change. That's my opinion when it comes to zoning, that if we're going to change a specific ordinance, it should be done not in a way that's going to either help or hurt a specific business. That's my opinion as the planning director. So,
All right, thank you, Phil. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. We're going to go virtually to Councilor Walsh, and then we will return in person to Councilor Govan.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I hope my voice holds out for this, but could Phil Dromey come back? Oh, I didn't see you there, Phil.
Counselor?
Phil, I just wanted to say, I think you read my mind, because what I'm thinking as we're doing this deliberation, that I don't know, I'll tell you right now, I don't feel comfortable voting on it. I don't know whether or not it's a good or a bad idea, but I also think there needs to be a lot more deliberation on it. And as opposed to my fellow counselor who went to Colorado, I disagree that we should vote on this tonight. You know, everybody on the council knows we spend a lot of time and effort in crafting these ordinances for marijuana and trying to be fair to everybody. And I feel like tonight I'm being rushed into making a decision I don't know enough about. And I think the council should deliberate it more. And I'm going to make a referral to committee based on the answer from Attorney G. Thank you, Phil, for agreeing with me. Could I ask Attorney G a question?
Good evening, Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Attorney. I just want to clarify in my mind that your legal advice to the City Council tonight is to not to support the change to the ordinance. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilor Walsh.
Thank you. That's what I thought it was. So thank you for clarifying that. And Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to send this to committee.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Walsh and Councilor Perez. Councilor Walsh, because this is a zone change hearing,
that's right. I'm sorry.
We can't send it to committee. We can continue it, but we can't send it to committee. Any meetings that we have will have to be held in this setting relative to a hearing.
All right. Well, then let me make the appropriate motion to continue.
Councilor Walsh, is that to continue with the hearing open?
Well, we would have to leave it open, wouldn't we, if we wanted testimony?
That is correct.
Yeah, so leave it open.
Motion has been made by Councilor Walsh to continue with the hearing open. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Councilor Edwards. Is there any discussion on the motion to continue with the hearing open? We'll go to Councilor Edwards and then we'll go to Councilor Davila. And I think also maybe Councilor Govan. So we're going to start with Councilor Edwards.
Wait a minute, I had my hand up for a long time, Councilor.
Councilor Whitfield, is your question on the motion to continue? Councilor Whitfield. I'm sorry, Councilor Whitfield, you're muted. We will return to Councilor Whitfield, but to answer what I believe Councilor Whitfield's question is, I did have you in the queue. A motion.
Can you hear me, Councilor?
I can hear you now, Councilor Whitfield. Did you hear my question?
Yes, on the motion, yes.
It is on the motion. Okay, so we're coming around. The motion has been made. The motion is to continue with the hearing open. I am going to recognize Councilor Edwards as I saw him on the motion, and then we will go from there. Councilor Edwards on the motion to continue with the hearing open.
I guess I'd like to hear from, thank you first, Mr. President. And Phil had made comment about the fact that this is something that should be dealt with more comprehensively. A planning and economic development meeting with the owners of the 3 operational dispensaries was held approximately 1 week ago. And from that meeting, after that meeting, I made a request to Attorney Shea and Attorney G that they craft an ordinance or a change to the ordinance that would allow for consideration of expanding the hours from 9 o'clock to 11. If we were to keep this hearing open, or if we were to deny this request tonight, how would that, or could that be brought back? For example, if we were to deny this permit after, could we then now bring it back and have it a part of a broader conversation looking at other aspects of the cannabis regulations?
I believe so, because I don't believe you could add your hours of operations to this particular petition, because it would have to be re-advertised. But I believe if you came back with a larger ordinance change that included language similar to what's being proposed tonight, I believe that could move forward without having to wait the 2-year period.
Well, I wouldn't want to, Phil, before you step away, may I ask, I believe earlier tonight, one of her guests made a very significant investment in advertising for the business of the council. I assume that if we were going to have a discussion on the hours, that would require a proper notice, but I wouldn't want to add that $1,200 plus burden on having this.
Well, again, if the council wants to review the ordinance as a whole and make individual changes, that would, in my opinion, would be a city council sponsored or petitioned zone change where the burden of the cost for the advertising would fall to the city, not to the particular petitioner. Because if the city is going to, if the city council is going to look to amend the ordinance, we would draft a petition for whatever changes are being proposed, including hours of operation, and you could then include whatever other changes you wanted to make to the ordinance. That would then have to get legally advertised, but as if the planning board petitioned for it, the cost of the advertising falls to the planning department. City council petitions for it, the cost of the advertising would fall to the city council or the city.
Mr. President, may I speak with Attorney G, or ask a question of Attorney G, please?
Councilor Edwards, you may, but I just want to caution councilors that the motion before us is to continue with the hearing open, and at this point, if we're speaking, it should be relative to inform your vote on the motion to continue, and
Yes.
not on the standard question that was before us previously.
Attorney G, if we were to extend this hearing and then in the future decide at that hearing that we wanted to make other changes, or if we were to deny it, can we incorporate or review this? My question, I guess, is simply, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. If we deny special permit, it generally requires 2 years for somebody to come back. Is that statement applicable to a denial of this zone change?
So, Councilor Edwards, marijuana is my expertise, not the city council operations. That would be a question, marijuana law, excuse me, is my expertise. But that would be a question for Attorney Shea, who I believe is on the Zoom call.
He is on the Zoom call. Would either of you, Mr. President, is it appropriate? Well, I guess what I'm trying to find out is that I intended and have made a request to Attorney Shea and to Attorney G to have a hearing or to create an order to make a change. How do I get that incorporated into what we're doing now or make it more comprehensive? Because the order hasn't been crafted and the meeting hasn't been scheduled.
Councilor Edwards, Rule 23 of our rules states that no proposed zoning ordinance or bylaw which has been unfavorably acted upon by a city council shall be considered by the city council within 2 years after the date of which such unfavorable action took place, unless the adoption of such proposed ordinance or bylaw is recommended in the final report of the planning board. So in other words, if the planning board brings forward a recommendation, we can hear it again. To answer your question, we might need some more insight, is if we were to deny this permit, this zone change, and then the council itself brought back a more comprehensive zone change, could it include this?
Yes.
We'd need a legal opinion on that one. We'd need a legal opinion.
But I also just want to point out that the change even to your hours of operation is not something that can just be petitioned and brought before the city. I mean, it's got to go through the whole, that's going to be a zone change, even if you're just doing the hours of operation.
Yes.
Okay.
The request was made through,
Okay.
well, Attorney G, I sent an email. I believe I talked to Attorney G. I did not hear a response from Attorney Shea. but I did make that request approximately 1 week ago.
All right.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards.
Thank
Does
you,
that
Mr.
conclude your
President.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. So on the motion to continue, we'll now go virtually, as we've been going in person, virtual, in person. We'll go virtually to Councilor Whitfield. We will then return in person to Councilor Davila on the motion. Councilwoman Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the motion, I have to say that I agree with Councilor Walsh because we just need more time. Just the question that Councilor Edwards asked right now, looks like we need a legal opinion on some information. And on the motion, what I heard from Attorney G is that we will lose oversight if if they get a building permit, we will lose the oversight to see if they're actually building the establishment because we've already issued the building permit. And so, you know, this is a safety net for us to make sure that the establishment is following the letter of the law that the CCC put in place to get the provisional license before they build. But if we issue the building permit, we're going to lose that oversight. In addition, what I heard Phil say is, and in agreement with Attorney G, is this proposal is being made for one establishment. We haven't heard it before from any other establishment. I think that just to do it for one establishment is not the right way to go. And I do agree with Phil Dromey that it should be a comprehensive process if that is in fact the case. So I think that we really need to consider what we're doing here. I heard Attorney Freeman say they're not going to start building until they get their provisional license, and they're not going to do X, Y, and Z until the provisional license approval is closed. We don't know that. We can't say what organizations or people will and will not do based on what someone else says. We can't base our facts on guesses and estimations of what people probably will and will not do. I don't think that's how the law works. And so I think it's best for us to give it more time, hear more information, and really get the facts. We don't want to lose oversight in anything that we do. And finally, no other establishment besides Mr. Yee came forward who doesn't even need this right now. No one else has complained about this process. And Councilor Letterman, I do have one question for Phil. Am I able to ask him a question?
Yes, Councilor Whitfield, as long as it pertains to informing your vote on the motion to continue.
Okay. My only question to Phil, Councilor Letterman, is how long does it normally take for an establishment to get a building permit once the provisional license is approved?
I mean, I can't speak offhand to the actual time. All I can tell you is I know that the city of Springfield is probably the quickest municipality in the state to issue building permits. I believe even now the petitioner can meet with the building department preemptively and discuss the proposed plans. The building department is always open to have meetings without actually issuing the permit, so that when the plans come in, those can be turned around relatively quickly. And again, an educated guess would be under 30 days. These are not complicated buildings, so I don't believe the plans take that long for the building department to review. So I don't believe in any way, shape, or form the getting of the building permit is an onerous process. But again, I'd have to defer ultimately to the Steve Desolate, the commissioner. But in most cases, building permits can be turned around relatively quickly.
Thank you, Phil. And so that's an additional reason. If they don't plan to build, they don't plan to do anything to this land until the provisional license is approved, why not just wait until the provisional license is approved? And so I think we need to hear more testimony. So that's why I support Councilor Walsh suggesting that the hearing stay open. But I also just want to say, we don't want to lose oversight of what organizations do in the city of Springfield, do or don't do, because if they do start building, well, we already gave the building permit, you know, and we're not going to ride by every week, every day to see if they're not building. We're not going to do that. So someone will have to tell, or it may happen by drive-by, but we shouldn't even want to take that risk as a council. It's our oversight that we will be losing in the process of issuing this change. So thank you, Mr. President. I support Councilor Walsh's motion.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. On the motion, Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I need some clarity. I do have a question for Attorney G, but I want to make sure that I ask at the right appropriate time. So the motion that we're discussing right now is to keep the hearing open, correct?
Correct. The motion is to continue this and stop discussing it tonight, continue it to our next hearings meeting
Oh, continue
in
to a
February.
next, okay.
Correct.
So if we pass it, we're done.
If we pass it, we're done for tonight. The hearing will remain open. We'll take more evidence next month and consider a vote.
All right, so I guess I do have a question for Attorney G to help me inform, if I may.
Attorney G.
Attorney G, if I may. Good evening again. So Attorney, you made a statement a little while ago that if we were to pass this, or you were responding to a councilor, that the city will have a liability. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I'm sorry, you said the city would have liability?
Yeah, so I think you were responding to one of the councilor's questions, and you stated that if the council passes this today, the city will have exposure to liability.
I'm not sure if that's what I said. I think what I was saying.
Or something to that effect, yeah.
I think what I was saying, and please tell me if this is not the point that I was making, is that Attorney Fryman is saying that the business will not start construction until they receive the provisional license or approval of their architectural plans from the CCC. But she's asking for the change to the zoning ordinance so that they can have the building permit before they get that approval from the CCC. And so the point that I was making is Attorney Fryman or the petitioner is asking for us to equip a business with a building permit without us fully knowing that the CCC has approved their architectural plans, which means that we'd be relying on that business to self-police themselves, and we would not have any oversight of whether or not they're really building according to the plans that were approved by the CCC without us first having that provisional license from the CCC. I think that's the point that I was making.
But I believe that even for them to start building, they need a building permit, right?
Yes, so the point that I was making was that we should not equip them with a building permit without first getting the plans, the confirmation that their plans have been approved by the CCC.
Right. But back to my original question, if we were to pass this today, in your professional legal opinion, is the city at risk of any exposure, any liability?
Well, I would think that it's not wise to equip someone with a building permit without first.
Right.
I would say that there would be some exposure there when you're equipping a business with a building permit without first confirming that their plans have been approved by the state agency.
Right.
And I would anticipate that would not go well with our relationship with the CCC, which I currently have a good relationship with them.
No, I understand that, and I appreciate that, Attorney. What I'm struggling with here is that as I see this, all the risk is on the proponents. All the risk is on the proponents.
Well, not exactly. I'm sorry, Councilor.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Not exactly, because if we equip them with a building permit and allow them to build a structure that is not compliant with the CCC, then a lot of things could happen. They could always abandon the project, or they could build anything, and we really have no control over that process. Projects get abandoned all the time throughout the country.
Yeah, but if they build something there, if we pass this and they start building something there, and say for whatever reason they don't get the permit, then either they are going to sell that property to recoup some of the money, or they're going to do something else on that property. But before they start functioning on that, they still will need whatever permits they need to operate, correct?
I don't know that that's a safe assumption, Counselor. I think that assumption is based upon the premise that everyone complies with the law, and I don't think that is a safe assumption.
Well, earlier today here, we have somebody, if I may, Mr. President, we had somebody who came in for a, auto permit to sell his car. There's already a building there, and we have a son-in-law that will complying. It will be kind of the same situation, at least, correct me if I'm mistaken. So they have a structural, they have a building there, they didn't get the license, now they want to do something with it. You know, I just trying to understand what you're saying, because I just took like what you said, that some people may try to build on a brand new building without coming to the city. I find that I'm struggling to see that, to be honest with you. Like, we are not going to notice.
I don't know what else to say that I haven't already said.
I know, attorney. I know you're doing your best, attorney. I understand what you're saying. So, thank you. Yeah, it was very kind. Thank you for your
Thank you,
explanation.
Counsel.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Motion on the floor is to continue with the hearing open. I'm going to go to Councilor Govan, followed by Councilor Whitfield, followed by Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess my question was, so if we continue this, when will be the next meeting to consider
February
this?
27th.
February 27th? Okay. And I have to, I guess, comment on the fact that this has been brought up to me as a city councilor before by actually Enlight, who finally did get their provisional license. I imagine that the CCC, if they approve architectural plans, they would give the applicant a notice saying that their plans were approved, so that we would have that evidence that they were approved. I imagine, right? Because they're not just going to tell them over the phone that they got approved. So it's just very concerning to me that we're not thinking about future businesses. We only have 3 operations open in the city, and I know it sounds like I'm testifying, but I'm not. So we have 3 businesses open in the city, and possibly because of this hurdle, we don't have more, and we're not getting the income, we're not getting the tax money, and we're falling behind. Other communities, from what I heard from Ryan and Attorney Freeman, do this, right? They give the building permit so that the person can be ready and are able to open the store faster, I guess. So that's just my opinion. I feel like we're lagging behind, and this might not be a time for us to continue and to just keep going. Thank you,
Councilor
Mr. President.
Councilor Whitfield, followed by Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the motion, I just wanted to clarify that abandoned properties are not always sold. Sometimes they're left and they go back into foreclosure tax title. So it's not true that owners will start developing and then sell the land, the property all the time. Sometimes they are just abandoned and left, and they go back into tax title or foreclosure or some type of taking by the city of Springfield. So that was just something that I wanted to clarify. In addition, I do agree with Councilor Govan as well that we do need to do something to maybe have less stringent ordinances. But right now, and the council worked hard to put them in place real late at night to put these laws in place, we should do it in a comprehensive way, not one zone change meeting at a time. Like, let's look at all the laws, like Phil said, get all the departments there and see how we can, you know, be more efficient with these, you know, with these cannabis organizations or businesses. However, I don't think that it's in the best judgment to change a zone based on one complaint and then not have oversight of what's getting billed on the premises. I also am not 100% sure that if the architect is approved, that they do get something in writing. I'm not 100% sure of that. So at this point, I don't feel comfortable with that information or other guesstimates being stated, just like it was said. There's no way that an organization would build if they don't have their provisional license. There's no way that an organization will try to pull a building permit if they're not close to their provisional license getting approved, because just because they're close, that doesn't mean that their closeness and their estimated time in their head is accurate. They can be close and it could still be 2-3 months out, 4 months out for approval. So we can't go on what we guess or think may be happening behind the scenes. We need that information as facts, and we should do a comprehensive plan to loosen some of the stringent requirements or the ordinance that we have in place. Because just going based on what guests and what, I do know it's a long time frame. I do know it takes a lot of time. I was on the marijuana selection committee, and I heard all these things as well. But it's the law that we put in place to make sure that we have a safety net. And I also don't think it's wise to give a building permit to developers just to have, and they're not gonna build. I don't think that that's a wise thing to do. So, again, I agree with Councilor Walsh, and I just wanted to make those clarifications. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Allen, followed by Councilor Hurst.
Thanks, Mr. President. First, I want to say that I love comprehensive plans. Spent a lot of my career developing them. But I also like business-friendly plans because they often make our city go. So I just want to say that I understand and respect the viewpoint of Attorney G and Mr. Dromey. I've talked to Phil about this issue at least 5 times before tonight. After listening to the testimony at this hearing from both sides, I don't see a problem with the petitioner's point of view. What I do see is a city with 3 adult marijuana facilities, all of which make payments to the city. That's 3 out of 10 that have been approved. 2 on State Street's coming, 1 on Cottage Street, 1 in Indian Orchard, 1 on Page Boulevard, 1 at Eastfield Mall, and 1 in the South End. Maybe a couple locations may change, but it adds up to 7 licenses. Out of 10 that we've given, 3 are open in 4 years. We've not done well at this, and there is money to be made. I have not been a large proponent of the marijuana business, but we're sitting here in a world where Northampton has 14 open and already closed 1 because of oversaturation. We have one here before us that's willing to go out on a limb, take a risk by changing 6 words, which I don't see the risk of. There are 7 left to open, this being one of them. Why would we not help them? I don't see the risk. Of course it makes sense to do zoning changes based on comprehensive plans, but this is going to help more than 1 business. It's just helping 1 business out of the blocks, and maybe 2. There's more payments to be made. Our city needs them. We kind of been behind on this all along, and it hasn't been a big problem. But Northampton has about 25,000 people. They've got 14 marijuana facilities open. We have 155,000 people. We have 3. There's more business here to be made. There's petitioners who want to help, who want to get started. And no one has proven to me that there's a real risk in letting them start to build in the meantime. It seems to me that this is the time to be business friendly and allow a little flexibility with this, which it doesn't, and I don't see the risk of that. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Councilor Hurst on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually agree with a lot of, Councilor Allen's points. I think, but on the flip side, I think Councilor Walsh and Councilor Whitfield too raised some valid issues. I guess, my concern is, while this particular issue may be a bit difficult to really comprehend, considering there are a couple of legal point of views that are somewhat conflicting, and also might not be easy for your average person who doesn't understand the law to really comprehend. So to that extent, on this particular zone change, it might take a little longer for folks to really digest it and make sure folks are making an adequate decision. My fear, though, is that if we're waiting for a comprehensive zone change, who in the world knows how long that is going to take? It could very well take months. And so just continuing this, we're going to be continuing it for an awful long time. And then going back to Councilor Edwards' point, if we're talking about something as basic as a time change, where I think you probably could get a good majority of the councilors to understand it, and it's probably going to be pretty straightforward. Are we still going to be looking for some sort of comprehensive plan in terms of looking at all of the regulations? There's a lot coming down the pike. There's social consumptions coming down the pike. I mean, delivery is already here, and none of those, I believe, are in the zoning ordinance. And so we're talking about more than a month here. And I don't believe that we're going to really sit down and put in the necessary time and energy to get this done in a month. And so my thought process is, let's vote on it. And if you're in favor of it, you're in favor of it. If not, then we vote it down. I just don't think it's realistic for the petitioner that this is not going to take more than a month. This is going to appear on our agenda, mark my words, for at least the next 3 to 4 to 5 months. And I'd imagine at that point in time, it's probably going to be a moot point for the petitioner. Thank you, Mr. President, and appreciate the dialogue.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Is there any further deliberation on the motion to continue with the hearing open?
Yes, I have my hand raised.
Councilor Walsh, on your motion.
Okay, I think we're missing the point here, and I disagree with Councilor Hurst. I don't think this is going to take a month. I think the council president has been very gracious about moving issues along. What we're talking about here is courtesy to other members of the city council who do not feel comfortable making a change, for one, that the law department told us that we shouldn't do, that we don't feel comfortable about it because we know that we spent much more time on making the marijuana ordinance. And, I am really uncomfortable whether or not this is unfair to everybody else that has gone through the process. I'm extremely uncomfortable. And these people, maybe they have to wait a month, but what if they have to wait 2 years and the vote fails? I think as a courtesy to those of us who are not comfortable, this motion should be supported.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Councilor Whitfield on the motion.
I'm going to agree with that 100%. I just wanted to mention that Northampton has 12 dispensaries open right now, and they're also considering and discussing making changes to their ordinance and also putting a cap on the number of dispensaries that they have. So they are also, the city council is also looking at the laws and the rules of their ordinances, because everything that seems green isn't always green. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. Just because there's more doesn't mean it's better. And I think that when we considered the laws, that we did a good job as the city council in putting those ordinances together. I also don't think it's going to take 5 months. I think we can do better than that. We have questions that need to be answered. And I think giving it a little bit more time is the right thing to do, like Councilor Walsh said, so we can get those questions answered. Because at this point, if we vote on it today, is a no for me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Is there any further deliberation on the motion to continue with the hearing open? If you would like to be heard in person, we'd ask that you rise, so I know you would like to be heard. Seeing no further deliberation on the motion to continue with the hearing open, without objection. Councilor Whitfield, is your hand up now again, or did I just not put it down from before?
No, I'm sorry, I did put it down, sorry.
And Councilor Walsh, is that the same for you?
Yes, I'm ready to vote on the motion.
Okay. So at this time, seeing no further deliberation, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the motion to continue with the hearing open.
On the motion to continue with the hearing open, Councilor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton. Recuse, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Govan.
No.
No, Councilor Allen.
No.
No, Councilor Brown.
Recused.
Recuse, Councilor Hurst.
No.
No, Councilor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Curran.
No.
No, Councilor Davila.
No.
No, Councilor Letterman.
Yes, and the votes are insufficient and the motion does not pass. So we will return to our regular debate on the zone change amendment. Councilor Govan.
Thank you. So again, I'm going to, I guess, repeat myself. I did have a question. How long does it take to get a building permit? I think they said maybe 30 days. Is that true, or has anyone gotten a building permit that they know how long it takes? Mr. Yee might know how long it takes. Oh, Phil, I'm sorry. How long does it take to get a building permit?
Again, as I mentioned
You don't
earlier,
know.
I can't give you a time.
Okay.
It all depends on the complexity of the building, but again, as I said earlier, Springfield is probably the quickest community in Massachusetts at turning around building plans and getting building permits out.
Okay, thank you so much, Phil. And then I guess a follow-up is the CCC, as part of the Cannabis Control Commission, they have to approve every step of the process that the applicants go through. So they approve the initial application, which might cost $500,000, and I'm making these numbers up. But as Attorney G said, 6 Bricks, Peyton Shubrick said that it cost her $2 million to open the doors to get started. So that long process, the CCC goes through every step and approves every step of it. The same thing with the architectural plans, and I'm pretty sure that they do get, I guess, a copy or a certification of the approval of the plans. So as Councilor Allen said, changing those 6 words to this ordinance, I think would not hurt anything, and it would in fact help other businesses open. This is just one business asking, I think, to help other businesses. As I said, and Light did report to me, because I was wondering why it was taking so long for them to start their process, and they reported that, they had to wait until they got the building permit, before they had to wait for the provisional license before they got the building permit, and they couldn't do anything until then. So, this has hurt, I'm sure, other businesses, and I think that I commend Attorney Freeman and Mr. McCollum for coming forward and proposing this change, because it is needed. As we have said, Springfield is losing money. It's leaving money on the table waiting for this process to happen. And I think the limit on the number of businesses that we allowed in Springfield was 13, I believe. And I don't know that we want that many here, but we do want businesses. We have Connecticut at our border. People come from Connecticut and are willing to, purchase our products, just like we go to Connecticut and purchase theirs. I think it's time for us to, I guess, get with the times. If we do need a comprehensive plan, which I agree with, we need to sit down and work on that comprehensive plan. But we have this proposal before us, and I think it's time for us to, approve it. I agree with the petitioners, and I'm in favor of approving this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Just a reminder to councilors, the hearing remains open. We have not yet closed the hearing and moved to deliberation. So at this time, we're taking questions for the petitioners and gathering evidence. Once we finish with that, we will then close the hearing, move to deliberation, and ultimately a vote, motions barring. At this time, we'll go virtually to Councilor Whitfield, and then we'll come back in person.
I'm sorry. Somebody was saying something.
Yeah, Mr. President, I wanted to be acknowledged as well. Thank you.
I see you, Councilor Perez.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Councilor Letterman, so I just wanted to be also clear that not all of the delays for the building process has been because of the provisional license. Actually, over here in the neighborhood that I live in, one of the establishments, it had nothing to do with the provisional license. They had the provisional license. What they didn't have was the funding. And so it wasn't because of the rent. It was because they needed to do some ownership change. It was because of management. So the provisional license is not always the reason for the delays of the building. I know this organization have their provisional license and their building permit and wasn't able to start building because of other reasons. It had nothing to do with the provisional license. I'm going to reiterate that what I don't like is we won't have the oversight. You give a building permit and tell someone not to build. If they're not going to build, what is the dire need of taking out these 6 words? Like, and then this building also received their building permit within 7 days of receiving their provisional license. So it didn't take a long time to get the building permit. So if you're not planning to build and you're gonna wait until you get your provisional license or architectural design, but you're not planning to build, what is the big rush of getting the building permit, which probably take between 7 and 25 days or 30 days, like Phil said? I don't see the urgency of the need to take these out. And we got to look at all of the factors. I also wanted to say that Springfield is in the best financial position it's ever been in. And I'm not going to say that we don't need these tax revenues, but we don't get them right away. It's not like, oh, it's going to open and we get these taxes in the next month. We don't. And we're in the best financial situation. I keep hearing, oh, we don't want to go back into a recession. Well, we have, I mean, not a recession. We don't want to go back into financial control board days. We haven't, since we have a comprehensive city council that looks at the budget, looks at it well, and make informed decisions on how to move forward with the budget. We haven't even been close to being back into that situation. And that was what, almost 10 years ago? We always hear that. We're not in that situation. This is the best financial position we've ever been as a city. And I'm not saying that we don't need additional funds, but we're not even doing well with the funds that we got in here. We're not doing well. And so I don't see the rush, except we are taking away our own oversight without really, really thinking this through. So right now, I respect what Attorney Freeman came in with. I really do. I respect what Ryan came in with, but I don't want to be the one to take away the oversight of properties being built on without us having some approval from the state. So I'm not going to vote in favor of this.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Perez. Councilor Perez. You are muted, Councilor Perez. We'll come back to Councilor Perez. Is there any further questions? Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 points to make. I know there's concern about comprehensive plans. I think they would take longer than we want them to take, but that's a matter of opinion, and we might have different opinions on that. But there's 2 things that I think, to me, sort of boil down to facts. One is this whole idea of zoning something based on one facility. First off, I don't have a real problem with that myself personally. Some people may. I don't see the harm in it. If there was truly harm in it, is it a preference to do something that applies to everybody at once? Absolutely. Is that how we should normally do business? Absolutely. And that is how we normally do business. We have an exception here. And, you know, one of the marks of a smart organization is being able to recognize an exception and give it its due. Give it its due that it might make sense, it might be risk-free, it might help our business climate, it might help a business. And I think this seems to be a situation where that's called for. Not everybody might agree with me on it, but there isn't really something wrong with zoning something for one business. It's not going to be just for one business. Once it's on the books, it's for any business that can benefit from it. When it go on the books because of the zoning ordinance adjustment we're looking for tonight, yes. But if that's unseemly to someone, it may not be the way we normally do business, but there's no real harm, and there is benefit. There is benefit to this one business that is actually going through all this rigmarole to try to get us to vote for it. That's probably costing them some money and costing them some time and costing them some resources. So to me, while it might not be the way we prefer to do business, I don't see an issue with I don't see any harm in it. And secondly, my other question is, what is the risk? What is the risk if we make this one change? This is the language that would go on the books if we voted for this. No adult use marijuana establishment may commence operation or apply for a building permit prior to its receipt of a special permit. No adult use marijuana establishment may commence operation prior to its receipt of its provisional license from the Cannabis Control Commission. It doesn't say anything about opening early because you got started constructing earlier than normal, etc. It says no adult use marijuana establishment may commence operation or apply for a building permit prior to its receipt of a special permit. No risk there. No adult use marijuana establishment may commence operation prior to its receipt of its provisional license from the Cannabis Control Commission. Personally, don't see any risk there. In both cases, the action being taken by the marijuana establishment is after they've received a special permit and after they've received the provisional license. I don't see, to me, that seems fine. Is it a little bit offbeat to start the construction a little bit earlier? Yes. But could it help? Yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Allen. Attorney G, I see you at this portion in the hearing. I can't recognize you unless you're a counselor requests it. Any counselor may request it, but at this time, until a counselor requests it, I cannot recognize you. Counselor Edwards?
May I hear from Attorney G?
You may in a moment, but I have some individuals who are participating
At the
virtually who would
appropriate
like
time.
to be heard. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
President,
And I'm coming now to Counselor Perez. Counselor Perez, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I was having some problem. As I said here, and I'm new to the council, I gotta agree with my colleague Whitfield and Councilor Walsh is saying. My concern is if we start giving out building permits and we don't have no jurisdiction over what happens after, I have concern with that. Also, I feel uncomfortable tonight voting a yes without having the proper information in front of me, except that I have authority to vote yes or no in an ordinance. I have to agree with my colleagues. What is the rush? I've been reading over and over and over the conditions, and I have concern allowing this building permit, and then we don't have no jurisdiction how to follow what is being done. So from the point of learning more about the city change ordinance, I would like to see more information. That's all I have to testify. Thank you.
Counselor
Thank you, Mr.
Edwards.
May I hear from Attorney G?
Attorney G.
To answer Councilor Govan's question, I looked at the City of Springfield's building permit website, which says that after all required documentation and plans are submitted, permit review shall not exceed 30 days. So that's on the website. I'm not the building commissioner. I can't speak for it, but I can tell you that the last time I spent about 4 days in that office, people were coming and asking or picking up permits that they had submitted the week before.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards.
Thank you, Counselor Edwards. Thank you, Attorney G. At this time, hearing remains open. Counselor Hurst. Gotcha.
Thank you. A quick question for Attorney Fryman. Attorney Fryman, is it accurate that the state law says that you cannot start construction, period, without a provisional license? Did I hear that?
No, that's in that's in the ordinance. Right now, I believe it's
so
just the architectural drawings that trigger the start of the construction.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Okay, so it's not.
Yeah. Granted approval. So, but if I can add, we're talking about a finite group of companies here. We're not talking about opening the door for 30 businesses to start construction. We're talking about a very, very small population of businesses that would be seeking to do this, certainly under 15 at this point. And there is jurisdiction through the special permit that's been issued and the host community agreement where the applicant needs to comply. So the city has a lot of oversight and the ability to shut down an operation if they haven't complied with the conditions of both the host community agreement and the special permit, in addition to, the other permits that are required. So it's not just giving a company carte blanche to start construction. Again, we're talking about a very small number of businesses to control. And you also have to, the city's already controlling these businesses through the permits that have been issued on the host community agreement. So
I guess I'm a little confused. Are we looking to change our laws to start construction?
No. Just to, not what I've proposed. What I've proposed is just to say that you cannot issue you do not need the provisional license to get a building permit. That's what I've proposed.
Okay. And so if we issue a building permit, I guess, are there multiple stages in which the city is required to check to see if construction is progressing? Do you know?
No different than any other construction project that I'm aware of.
I assume like after you pour the foundation, you have to call the building department to to ensure that the foundation is poured correctly, right? So you can't just keep going and build, this $1 million structure without having to go back and get approval from the building department. And maybe that's not your question. Maybe that's a question for Phil. Is that accurate, Phil? Do you know? Like at its most basic phase, I'd imagine that once you pour the cement for the foundation, that you have to in turn go back to the building department to see whether it was done appropriately. Is that accurate?
Well, I don't really like to speak for the building department, but it is my understanding there are multiple inspections included in the construction of anything. Whether or not a developer follows that's a whole other ballgame, but I do believe that inspections are required with plumbing, electrical, foundations, stuff like that.
I'm sorry, Phil. I mean, realistically, if we want to apply that logic, they could just start construction now, right? Without the permits.
You're correct.
They don't have to follow.
Yeah, I do believe there are inspections required for all construction projects.
Yeah, I know there are inspections required, and I know they're required fairly early in the process. And so in the event that a special permit was granted, if there was construction before it even got off the ground, before you could even move past laying the foundation, you would have to go back to the building department. And so we would know when there was actual construction. And so I guess to that point, it seems like there are multiple opportunities still for the city of Springfield to have the oversight that it needs to have. So with that being said, Mr. President, I'm prepared to vote on this particular issue, but I will defer to my colleagues.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Curran.
Just a quick question for Attorney Fryman. Attorney Fryman, if we were to pass this this matter tonight, how much quicker would this speed up along your process potentially? Is that what?
Well, for certain, the time that it takes to get a building permit, so certainly a month,
Yeah.
if it is within that time period. So, I don't know how much back and forth there would be with the building department, but certainly at least a month. And that's a lot of time at this point, having waited for so long. So if you can be ready to go and save a month, that would be that's important and impactful to these businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Curran. Councilor Davila, followed by Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am too prepared to vote on this matter, and I will be brief on this. First, allow me, Mr. President, to thank the presenting attorneys. I think you guys have done an absolutely wonderful job at presenting this to us. Also, allow me to compliment my colleagues, as I think this has been an extremely good, healthy, robust debate. Mr. President, I am thinking that when it comes to the marijuana establishment here in Springfield, it has been, like Councilor Allen say, a bumpy start. I do think that as it relates to this, that again, we're shifting all the risk to the proponent. I also think that it will appear to me that of all the people that have presented and gotten special permits, there's always that one extra obstacle. I know, Mr. President, in my own district, I have an establishment that did get a permit about 2 months ago, and to the best of my knowledge, as of today, they still don't have a host agreement. And they cannot operate with that. So it's always there seems to be something else, some other obstacle. We were told about 2 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic that year 2024 or so, 23, 24, because of the pandemic fallout and the concurrent economic fallout of the pandemic, that we were going to have some tough choices to make financially for the city of Springfield. And let us not lose track that there's 1/3 of the revenue, of the taxes, is going to be going to the neighborhoods. Let us not lose track that the sooner we open, the more taxes we can be collected. And that's going to be money that God knows we're going to be needing in the budget in the coming fiscal years. So I don't see how this benefits one particular business, as this is going to be the law of the land moving forward if this wise and knowledgeable body decides to pass it today. And I'm ready to vote on this, and I have to say that I will be voting.
My apologies, Councilor
That's
Davila.
okay. As I will be voting in favor of this ordinance. I urge all my colleagues, let's not leave money at the table. Like Councilor Hurst said a little while ago, and I do believe Councilor Govan and Councilor Allen did pointed out, the city is still going to have opportunity to review. They are going to be aware of what's happening. They are just going to put 4 bricks in there, and that's it. I am comfortable moving forward with this today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Members participating virtually, individuals, please ensure you are muted. And at this time, we'll go to Councilor Whitfield. A reminder to councilors that the hearing remains open, and we are currently still collecting evidence. Councilor Whitfield.
All right, so I agree with Councilor Allen that it does affect more than one business. The change will affect businesses to come in the future. I'm not really opposed to that either. That wasn't any of my concern because it only takes one to set a precedent. So I agree with that. I think that we are setting a precedent, and I'm hopeful that when we do look at these, we can still, even if this is approved tonight, we can still look at a comprehensive way to look at the whole marijuana ordinances and see what changes we can make. The reason that I love getting the evidence and the feedback is because I have changed my opinion. I have changed my opinion based on what Councilor Davila just said, because I think he's right. The burden will be on the petitioner. So if they do start building and then we don't have the provisional license, and they will be the ones getting fined. And if they do start building and the provisional license isn't approved, the financial burden will be coming out of their pocket. So I think that because they are the first, they're really going to be looked at to see if they start building. And so the burden would also be on them again. I also do agree with Councilor Govan, Davila, and Allen that we do need to eliminate barriers that's hindering these establishments from opening. So since the burden isn't going to really be to the city, it's going to more be to the business owner, you know, I just think that we should be cautious that when we give up our oversight, these things can happen. And if it happens, it's something that we voted to happen. But I have changed my opinion because I think sometimes it only takes one organization or one group of people or one person in leadership to make changes. And it doesn't have to be multiple organizations right now. So with that, my opinion has changed. I'm voting in favor, and I'm ready to vote whenever folks are done with the hearing and we close it and deliberate.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Members are reminded that it is currently 9:46, and in 14 minutes we will encounter Rule 54, which will result in this meeting ceasing to continue without unanimous consent. And so at this time, I recognize Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President.
One moment, Councilor Davila. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just looking to move forward, so I'm not sure if the right motion will be to either move the question or close the hearing.
The motion would be to close the hearing.
So I make a motion to close the hearing?
Motion is made by Councilor Davila to close the hearing, seconded by Councilor Edwards. Is there any discussion on the motion to close the hearing? Seeing no discussion, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the motion to close the hearing.
On the motion to close the hearing, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Fenton, recuse. Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Brown, recuse. Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The hearing is now closed. Is there any deliberation amongst the council relative to this zone change? Councilor Davila.
Thank you. Just move the question.
Second.
A motion has been made by Councilor Davila to move the question. It's been seconded by Councilor Govan. The motion is in order. Madam Clerk, please call a roll on the motion to move the question. This is a motion to end debate at this time and proceed to a vote on the zone change. A yes vote will close debate and proceed us to a vote. A no vote will continue deliberation.
On the motion to move the question, Counselor Walsh.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Fenton, recuse. Counselor Perez.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Brown, recuse. Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The question is now called. We'll proceed to a vote on the zone change. A yes vote will approve the zone change, and a no vote will deny the zone change, resulting in the current language staying the same. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the zone change.
On approval of the zone change, Counselor Walsh.
No.
No. Counselor Fenton, recuse. Counselor Perez.
No.
No. Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Allen.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Brown, recuse. Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Click Bruce.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Edwards.
No.
No. Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are 8 in favor, 3 opposed. The votes are not sufficient, and the zone change is denied. Madam Clerk, is there any further business properly brought before this body?
There is not.
Seeing none, we will stand adjourned.